let's go fishing? Wait a minute. I thought we were talking about essay writing. Trust me, we are. This is just an example that I use in my classroom for students to understand what a hook is. Now, a hook of your essay is the very first sentence to reel in your audience. Now, how do you do that? Now, for most of you, you probably sit there in front of your computer screen and you stare at the cursor. It blinks over and over and over and over again. And you're hoping that the words will magically appear on that page. But you know they're not going to. Somehow you have to start this essay. Now your hook should be just that brilliant one sentence, one liner that's going to grab your audience. It's going to reel them in and keep them on that hook until the end of your essay. Unfortunately, we don't know where to start. So where do we start? I'm going to pause you right now and tell you, you don't. Unfortunately, you haven't even figured out what you're going to write about. So how can you even begin to write your hook? Most of my students I see in the classroom stare at that page, and I walk around and I come back and they're still staring at that page. And I know most of you have done this before as well. The problem is you don't know where to start. So my advice to you is to skip it. Now, on the graphic organizer that you have in front of you right now, you're going to have a section that's labeled hook. Attached to this video, you're going to have a PowerPoint presentation that's going to walk you through how to actually write that hook. But I want you to write it at the end of your essay. Trust me when I tell you this, it's going to help you so much if you skip it and you go to the next section of your introductory paragraph, which is the background.
As previously discussed in the introductory paragraph, the paragraph has 3 very specific jobs. The first is to capture your audience's interest, which we'll be focusing on today through this PowerPoint. This element is called the hook. Now, if you remember, I've asked you to put a hold on the hook at this point because you didn't quite know what you were writing about. So at this point, you should have all of your graphic organizers sitting in front of you and everything should be filled out except for the hook and the clincher. Remember, we're going to be practicing echo structure here. So if you've not viewed the video on echo structure, it's very important that you go back to the concluding paragraph webpage and watch the echo structure video. That way you have an idea of exactly what it is that you want to use for your hook. Now there are several different types of hooks that you can use for grabbing your reader's attention. The first is the quotation. You can use a quotation from either the literature that you're writing about or from an outside resource. It is important to remember that if you are using a quotation from an outside resource, that you cite that resource within your works cited page. The second type of hook is a question. Now the question can be very difficult to master, and what tends to happen is students ask the reader a direct question. This is not what you want to do. Your reader will have one of 2 answers, either yes or no. What you don't want to happen is your reader to answer no. If they do not agree with the question that you have asked, you now have lost your audience. There was now no relatability between your reader and your essay. So the type of question you want to create is what we call a rhetorical question. This type of question is correctly by developing the answer to the question within the body of your essay itself. So what you want to avoid are questions that begin with, have you ever, ... Has this ever happened to you, ... For example, one of the funniest questions that I have found was, have you ever been literally stabbed in the back by a best friend? I literally had to stop and laugh at this hook. This student was relating their question to Julius Caesar, which in Julius Caesar, we know that the best friend literally stabs Julius Caesar in the back. And this particular student was asking me if I had literally been stabbed in the back. Of course, my answer was no. At this point, although I was laughing, I lost my interest in the essay. So you want to avoid those types of questions. Questions in which your audience is giving their own personal answer. You want them to be looking for the answer within the body, which will engage your reader through your entire essay. The next type of hook is startling information. You are probably not going to have startling facts in literary analysis essays, so you most likely will not use this type of hook. but it is a great type of hook to draw your reader in if you are doing a research essay. The fourth type of hook is an anecdote. An anecdote is a short story. It could be a personal story, it could be a story that you've heard about, and so on. Again, you want to keep it short and concise. What you don't want to happen is to tell one story and then get into the background section of your introductory paragraph and tell a second story. Remember, you're trying to grab your reader's attention. The next type of hook is irony. Now, this is a very difficult hook to master. If you remember, irony is saying one thing but meaning an opposite. Now, it's very difficult to capture your reader's attention by saying something but really meaning something else. So your reader might find themselves confused and unsure of what it is that you are talking about. My suggestion is don't tackle irony as a hook unless you feel that you are ready to go on to that next level. The last type of hook is a summary of information, and you're basically summarizing the information that you're talking about in your essay. I generally say as a rule of thumb, don't do this one. This is very, very difficult, and a lot of times I find as a reader it just simply does not hold my interest. My advice to you is to keep to the top two hooks, quotations and questions. These are generally the two that students find themselves the most comfortable with, and they are generally the two that you can easily create a hook for your audience. Again, it is very important to remember your hook is to hook that audience in and to grab their attention, and hopefully they're ready to look at the rest of your essay. Now let's get started on choosing a hook.